Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our class today. As I wrote in my email today, I'm going to switch our focus just a bit, and we're going to focus on our world today, the world that we find ourselves in. I begin by focusing on the portion of the Torah that was read last Shabbat and this coming Shabbat. And for those that were in our synagogue this past week, we touched upon it. So you'll hear some of the similar themes today. But we're focusing in the book of Exodus. At the end of the book of Exodus, the focus is on the building of the tabernacle. The tabernacle was built for the wilderness, in the wilderness, while the Jews sojourned for 40 years there. And the Torah gives us great details of every single item in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle. This tabernacle was a traveling unit. It was a mobile unit. They can literally take it apart and put it back together because the Jews traveled in the wilderness. So this sanctuary traveled with them. And there would be a whole lengthy way of how it would come apart and put it back together. They took it with them into Israel when the Jewish people entered Israel. It stood for a few hundred years. Most of its time was in a city called Shiloh. It was there for 369 years. On your next trip to Israel, you should visit the city of Shiloh, and they'll show you exactly where the tabernacle once stood. It's a very holy place. So that was one form of building a home for God. There was a second one, and that was called the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple was constructed first by King Solomon. It was built on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And then there was a second Holy Temple that was built years later after the first exile. So you have the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, and the Mishkan and the Tabernacle. These homes, both the sanctuary of the wilderness and the Holy Temple, were abodes for divine presence. This is where God rested, and you can feel God's presence. The Torah tells us, "You shall make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them." That God says, you build this for me, I will dwell. This will be my house on earth, and you can come visit me. So anytime that you would go to the Holy Temple or you would visit the tabernacle, you would feel God's presence. It was a place to go to be rejuvenated, to feel that sense of spirituality. Yet, there is this striking difference in the end result of both. What do I mean by that? The tabernacle that was built first in the wilderness and then taken into Israel, and it was in Shiloh, when the tabernacle was no longer going to be in use, all of its vessels were packed up and hidden. They were buried in hiding places. They're there till this day. I know that Steven Spielberg thinks that he found the ark, but he didn't really find the ark. It's hidden somewhere. Later in time, when King Solomon builds the Holy Temple, and then you go fast forward, the Babylonians come in and destroy Jerusalem and destroy the Holy Temple. They destroy the Beit HaMikdash and most of its vessels. When the Romans will come in and destroy the temple, they will destroy it. We have nothing left of it but the Western Wall. That's what remains of the temple. Now, if you've taken a tour of the tunnels near the Western Wall, you can see the size of those stones. You can see how big this wall was. But of the Beit HaMikdash itself on the Temple Mount, we don't have anything. It was destroyed. And the question is asked, why historically did it happen that the tabernacle did not get destroyed and the Holy Temple did get destroyed? If both were houses of God, should there not have been this miracle protecting these structures that no human being could do damage to it? Now, one can say, well, the Holy Temple was a much bigger structure. You wouldn't be able to hide it. That's not true. You could have hidden the vessels, and God could perform many miracles. God could have opened the ground. The entire Holy Temple could have gone into a chamber that no human being can get to. So when we're dealing with godliness, and my question is on the godliness of it, the question remains, why miraculously the tabernacle still remains somewhere intact? I don't know where, you don't know where, but it's still somewhere intact. No one destroyed it, but the Holy Temple was indeed destroyed. twice, by the Babylonians and by the Romans. And I saw this interesting commentary, and this is why I chose to open with this today. The commentary says this: the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the wilderness, was built through voluntary contributions of the Jewish people. Moses let out a call to say, who would like to donate, come donate. The Holy Temple in Jerusalem was built by royal pressure. There was a tax, there was a draft. And that which is built involuntarily can't endure. That which is built voluntarily will last forever. When it came to the tabernacle in the wilderness, God says to Moses, speak to the children of Israel, let them take a contribution from me. Take my contribution from everyone whose heart impels them to give. They shall make a sanctuary and I will dwell among them. So here is a mitzvah, a commandment from God, but it's completely voluntary. This aspect of the project, that it was non-compulsory, would be repeated in the text of the Bible 5 times. That it should only be given by those whose heart impels them to give. They have a desire to want to give. Throughout the entire narrative of the construction of this tabernacle, in last week's portion, this week's portion, this phrase is repeated over and over. Nidiv lev, the giving of the heart. The person is motivated, the person is inspired, and that's how they want to give. The Torah said in last week's portion, every man whose heart uplifted him came, and everyone whose spirit inspired him to generosity brought the offerings of the Lord for the work of the tent of the meeting, for all of its service and for all of its holy garments. It says the men came after the women, which implies that the women came first. They were the first to line up to give. They gave of their jewelry. In fact, the text of the Torah defines the jewelry that they gave, the types of jewelry that they gave. And then the men saw the women giving. They decided they wanted to give. And there's long lines of people wanting to participate. Not only the giving of the funds or the gold or the jewelry for the construction of the tabernacle, but the work. The artisans, the craftsmen, the weavers, the designers, all voluntary. Who wants to come build a sanctuary for God? The enthusiasm, the passion was so great that the Torah says that they come to Moses, the overseers, and they say, the people are bringing too much. We have too much. It's too much material. And Moses makes an announcement, that's enough, no more, you don't have to bring any more, please stop, we have more than enough. It's probably the first and the only building campaign where the organizer says, stop giving. You've never heard me say that, but Moses says it in the text of the Torah. Enough, you brought enough. I want to contrast that with the Holy Temple. King Solomon wants to build the Holy Temple. He wants to build something magnificent for God on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. So he imposes a tax on all of Israel. And this tax was not just a financial tax, but it was also about working. It was a draft. There were 30,000 men that he sent off to Lebanon just to cut lumber that would be needed for the temple. They would go in shifts of 10,000. So that they spent a month in Lebanon, 2 months back home, a month back in Lebanon. He had 70,000 carriers and 80,000 stone cutters in the hills of Israel to bring those stones there. And again, if you've taken a tour of the tunnels and you see the size of those stones, you can understand why it took so many people to move those stones and to come up with the engineering of how to move those stones. There were 3,300 foremen who supervised the project. The temple that was built as a result was splendorous. And it was a magnificent construction for that period of time as well, even for now. We still can't figure out how they moved stones so large. But the people were taxed. And they felt it. And when King Solomon dies, there's a delegation that comes to his son, who becomes the successor. And they say, you know, your father put a heavy yoke upon us. The tax is great, but now, could you lighten the labor? Can you lighten the yoke that was put on us? And we'll serve you, we'll be loyal to you, but enough of the tax. Unwisely, he doesn't listen to their request. And there's a civil war that will break out, and there's two kingdoms. If you've ever heard of the Jewish people breaking into two kingdoms, the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of the 10 tribes, that was the cause. This, says the commentators, is the key distinction between the two houses of God. Both were homes where the divine presence dwelled. Both became centers of holiness and inspiration, but there was a difference. The Mishkan, the sanctuary, the tabernacle in the wilderness was based on free will. The people chose to contribute. They chose to do the work. They were motivated. They were inspired. They were energized from within. And the Holy Temple was built by force. They were taxed, both in terms of finance and human labor. Anything that you build and you create via coercion will exist for a short term, but never long term. At some point it collapses. It lacks staying power. Freedom is part of the human soul. Your soul is made up of a desire for freedom. And when you coerce a person into doing something, you haven't really gotten him. Haven't really gotten the essence of the human to do anything. You simply made it look like he's doing it, like he wants to do it. Only when a person does something with his heart and with passion is there a chance for it to endure. And this is true in all areas of life. You know the expression, you could win the battle and lose the war. You can force people to do it your way, and under the circumstance you may succeed, but it won't last. Anything that is imposed upon people against their will won't last forever. It's the same with our children. When our children are very young, we tell them what to do. We dictate to them what to do. We're stronger than them, we're bigger than them, we provide for them, so we get to dictate things. But if life is going to be only about parents dictating, we're not really educating them for anything, and they will have no staying power, because as soon as they could move out of the house and do things their way, they will not take anything with them. It's only that we have an opportunity to inspire and to teach and to educate that they will want to do this by their own free will, that we have a chance. It's tempting to take the shortcut, to impose, to force. It settles things swiftly, but it's a long-term disaster. And this has been proven true throughout the history of the world in every political system, regime, and empire that has ruled with coercion. So let's talk about Ukraine. We're witnessing before our eyes the battle of freedom versus coercion. A battle of a people that want to be free versus a dictator. Our hearts and our prayers are with the people of Ukraine, their citizens, their soldiers, their volunteer fighters, their leaders, and a very brave and courageous president named Vladimir Zelensky. This is a modern-day David versus Goliath story that's unfolding before our eyes. We're watching it in real time. For a country like Ukraine that has been notorious in history for its anti-Semitism and was soaked with the blood of close to 1.5 million Jews during the Holocaust. Yesterday's bombing attack, by the way, attacked one of the most powerful Holocaust memorial tributes that were in the city, the capital city of Kiev. For a country like this to have elected a Jewish president and is now home to the largest contingency of Chabad emissaries just about from the entire world, serving 350,000 Jews that lived in Ukraine up until a week ago, is a testament to how far this country has come and how much they value freedom. President Zelensky doesn't hide his Judaism. He didn't hide it during the campaign. He didn't hide it today. He didn't hide it all the leading up to today. He's a proud Jew. He speaks openly about his Jewish heritage. He speaks openly about his Jewish pride. And now he will have to channel the strength and the courage of a King David, who also faced his enemies with such bravery. And like great leaders of old, he marches with his troops. He's not hiding somewhere. He's not taking the plane that will get him out. He doesn't abandon and run. He's there with his people. And he has become beloved not just by his entire country, but literally by a world. The world has embraced this man, has bonded with this man, feels every word that he says as if he's talking directly to you, and he is. He's not just speaking to his country, he's speaking to us, and he's speaking with clear words. He's telling us what he needs from us, from the people of the world, from the people of freedom. You see, this is not just a battle against a single country. Yes, it's the people of Ukraine whose lives are in danger at this very, very second. But this is an attack on the world. It's an attack on the free world. That's what the president of Ukraine is telling us, and he's so right. If this is allowed to go on, and if Putin gets away with taking Ukraine, the world will have become a much darker, more dangerous world. Think about the people of Taiwan today and what they're thinking. Because if Russia could take Ukraine, China can take Taiwan. There's a lot more reason for China to want Taiwan than for Russia to want Ukraine. And think about the danger that that will do to the world, economically and in every possible way. Think about the people in South Korea today, what they're thinking. If North Korea can see that, hey, you could go into another country and just take it over and get away with it. That madman in North Korea, you think he's not wishing that he can do exactly the same with South Korea? And what happens then? Think about the people in Saudi Arabia today, when you have Iran nearby, taking a look and saying, I'm hungry too. Why could Putin get dessert? I want some dessert too. Saudi Arabia's got some nice oil wells. And Iran decides to march on into Saudi Arabia. Think of what the consequences of this are for all of the world, for all of the globe, for every citizen of the world. This is not one country. This is our world. And where does Russia itself go next? You think it stops with Ukraine? Where suddenly Putin's appetite ends after he gets Ukraine? Think if you lived in the Baltic states, what you may be thinking. Poland. He has dreams on restoring the Soviet Union to what he calls the glory days. That's where his ego is taking him. Now think for a moment. If we could have stopped Hitler Yamach Shemai before he murdered tens of millions of people, 6 million of our own, to what length would we have gone? To what level of discomfort would we have gone? To how much of our own personal agenda would we have put on hold if we would have been able to stop Hitler? If we could have stopped Stalin before he murdered tens of millions of people, what length would we have gone? If we could have stopped Mao Zedong before he caused the death of tens of millions of people, what length would we have gone? If we would have been able to stop Genghis Khan before he committed all of his atrocities, what length would we have gone? People are calling this a war of Russia versus Ukraine, and I understand that that's the way it looks. But the Russian people have nothing to do with this. For the most part, it may not even be the Russian military against Ukraine. Many of these soldiers are 19-year-old kids that have no idea, no desire to be killing innocent men, women, and children. But they know if they don't, they get killed. This is a war of a dictator. It's an evil dictator versus Ukraine. It's an evil dictator versus freedom-loving people all over Europe and all over the world. And it boggles the mind how far one's ego and lust for power can take them. Because that question of what does he want? What does he need this for? Look, his face and his name is associated with evil all over the world. That we're even taking our holy time of a Wednesday afternoon where we're studying Chumash, we're studying the Bible, and we're talking about Putin. Every newspaper in the world has his face on the cover, and it's not saying such nice things about him. What did he need this for? Putin, by all accounts, has stashed away enough money for himself to make him the wealthiest person on the planet. Now, maybe Elon Musk now has more, but maybe not. Putin has total control over his country. He could retire at any moment he wants in total glory, with total power. There is nothing in the world that he wouldn't be able to buy for himself. Any fantasy that this human being has, he can have. You want to buy an island? Buy an island. You want to buy a yacht bigger than a football field? You'll have that made for you. You want to buy the football team itself? I'm sure that you'll buy a football team. You'll buy the whole Major League Baseball. They're on strike anyway. Every second of every day he could be enjoying anything he wants, not just for one generation, for the next 1,000 years. He has everything. There is nothing that he could desire. He's a president for life. He keeps re-electing himself in these phony elections, and everyone goes along with it, fine. He has houses in every part of the world. He probably has more Bitcoin than anyone else in the world. He has everything. And he has the glory of history that would mark him down as the president of Russia for 40 years. So what's he doing? His ego and his hate will not let him rest. He's just not satisfied. We have studied together the book of Exodus. And in the book of Exodus, we studied many characters. There's one character that's more mysterious than any other character because we couldn't figure him out. Pharaoh. Can't you see the writing on the wall? What's such a big deal? Let them go. You're Pharaoh. You're the most powerful leader in the world. You have the most wealthiest country in the world. These Hebrews want to leave. Let them leave. They're not from here anyway. They're a bunch of immigrants. Let them go. Gesundheit, he should have said. What does he need this for? No. And one plague, and another plague, and another plague, and another plague, and another. He can't stop. He can't. He can't. The evil, the ego, the hate won't allow him to. We have another example. Haman, the story of Purim. He can't let go of his hate for the Jewish people. And it is that hate that will drive him and drive him and drive him until he does the strangest of things. And ultimately that's his downfall. And ultimately that's Pharaoh's downfall. See, Putin, I'm not a prophet. He may win this battle for the capital of Kiev. I hope not. I pray not. I pray we see miracles and Kiev is able to stand up to what's coming their way. But Putin may win that battle. And the great president of Ukraine may be captured. Or may be killed, God forbid. And the country may fall. But I'm no great military expert or world historian, but I can clearly tell you that Putin will never win the war. He'll win the battle, but he'll never win this war because the Ukrainian people will never accept a puppet regime controlled by Moscow. He will never be able to truly control that country. He'll destroy it, he'll ruin it, but he'll never control it. And ultimately, whoever they will put in place will be overthrown. Because once you've tasted freedom, It's part of your soul. You don't walk away from it, no matter what. I mean, you've seen the same things I've seen on social media. These mothers of little babies staying there with such bravery and such courage. You see these women on the front lines with guns. You see courage in their faces. You see these men walking up to tanks and just standing in front of a tank. You see courage on the faces of this proud people. They may be defeated in the battlefield, but they will not lose. History has shown us they will not lose. And what will be of Putin? He will be remembered as a thug and as a dictator and as a murderer who allowed his own ego to ruin his own country and run his own country into the ground. And ultimately, I believe the only way that he will be defeated is from within, from his own people, that see the damage that's being done to their own country, to their own economy, to fight against the people they have nothing against. They're all related. They're all connected. They're all friends. So why are they picking up guns and shooting them? They know, the Russian people know this is unjust. I am certain the Russian generals know this is unjust. And so we are inspired by the bravery of the Ukrainian people, by all of them. And we stand with them. But those are nice words. We stand with them. You know, putting the flags on your lapel, it's nice. I like it. I'm inspired by it. I'm inspired by seeing by concerts, people singing together. There's a feeling of unity amongst the world that I haven't felt 2 weeks ago. That suddenly you feel we all have a cause that we can all join from all different sides of the political spectrum, that we can all rally behind. All of this is good. But they need more than words. And the president of Ukraine keeps appealing to us. And yes, he's appealing to governments of the world, but he's appealing to the citizens of the countries of the world to help frame the mindset of those countries. He's appealing to us, to me, and to you, and to every citizen of the world. They need our loud voices, and they need help from all decent countries of the world. And he's making it clear what he needs. They need arms. You don't want to come fight for us, we get it. You don't want a World War III, we get it, they're saying to the world. But give us ammunition, we'll do the fighting. We'll put our lives on the front lines. We'll put our families on the front lines. Give us what we need. You have them stockpiled. It's not about opening a factory and starting to make everything. Countries of the world have what they need. For 3 days now, maybe 4, we've been hearing about this 40-mile-long caravan making its way slowly but surely to the capital. Well, if Ukraine had what they needed, they could defend themselves against a 40-mile sitting duck caravan. You know, we keep seeing on the news they're coming together in beer factories and whiskey factories making Molotov cocktails. Again, inspiring to see citizens just trying to do what they're doing. But is there not sadness that we're allowing a free people, a democracy, that we're allowing them to fight the great Russian army with Molotov cocktails in the year 2022? When all the countries of the world have fighter planes, have anti-tank missiles, have Stinger missiles, have what they need, you still have a border open by Poland to get things in. In a few days, there won't be borders open to get anything in. And so when I hear the president of Ukraine speaking, you see his eyes, and they're staring at your eyes. He's talking to me. He's talking to you. He's talking to us. He's talking to the world. We should call the White House. We should call our senators. We should call our congressmen or congresswomen and put them on notice that we, the citizens of this country, are asking our country to send arms to help the Ukrainian people. We can't sit back and watch men, women, and children, innocent men, women, and children being bombed. For what reason? For what justification? It wasn't as if there's a war between these two countries. There's an ideological difference between these two countries. It's simply because of the evil of one human being. Well, this world, a modern world, shouldn't allow for that after seeing the history of what evil dictators can do if you allow them to continue this way. The idea that every single day we're still buying oil and gas from Russia boggles the mind. We're funding this war against innocent people. Now, I know my audience here, you're on different sides of the aisle. Put that all aside for right now. Put all of our agendas, everything aside. If you see innocent people being killed and it's being bankrolled by our money, let's say stop. The president in his State of the Union address spoke yesterday about Made in America, Made in America, Made in America. I love that. I'm a big patriot. I believe in Made in America. So should our fuel then be. And we should stop buying it from Russia because they're taking that money and they're bankrolling a $15 billion a day war against an innocent country. There are things that we simple citizens can do by calling those that represent us in Washington and share our voices with them. Every Russian embassy and consulate needs to have rallies in front of them in support of Ukraine in the world. Not because the ambassadors or their staff are to blame for this. I know they have nothing to do with this. But we want them to report to their superiors in Moscow that the world is opposed to them. That there's men, women, and children standing on the streets in front of their embassies, demonstrating and begging them to stop the murder of human beings. They need to report to Moscow that they have become pariahs throughout the world because this pressure must build from within Russia. That's where the overthrow will come from the strength and the courage of the Russian people, just like we see it coming from the Ukrainian people. The Russian people are victims here too. At least many of them, or most of them. And you see thousands of them demonstrating in Russia. Do you know what that means? They know when they go to that demonstration that there's a good chance they will be beaten and they will be arrested and they'll spend time in jail. And yet they do it. Men, women, and children demonstrating in the streets of Russia against Putin. We need to ignite that spark so that it spreads throughout their entire country. Putin needs to be overthrown from within his own country. And the sanctions by the world, and a boycott of their oil, and the shutdown of their banks, and their stock exchanges, and the collapse of their ruble, and arming the Ukrainian people will bring freedom, will bring victory to the freedom, to the people that are fighting for freedom. And will make a statement, a loud and bold statement, to all other dictators contemplating their next moves, to think twice, that the world will unite and fight for freedom and sacrifice for freedom. Tonight on the Jewish calendar is Rosh Chodesh Adar. We have two Adars this year, Adar 1, Adar 2. These hours right now, from now until for the next 48 hours, are transition hours between two Adars. Adar is the happiest month on the calendar. This year we get double dosage of it. So it's a powerful moment as we go from Adar 1 to Adar 2. What makes the month of Adar so joyous is the fact that this is the month that Haman picked to try to destroy the Jewish people. V'nahapachu. What happened? The tables turned on him. And the good people were able to stand up and battle and be victorious over evil. That's what the story of Purim is about. That's why we wear a mask. Because everything was masked. Everything was hidden. And then suddenly goodness prevailed. Just when everything looked so dark, the world turned light. Well, if we ever need that miracle of Purim again for the world to experience, not just the Jewish people, but for the entire world, may this be the year of Purim for the world. May there be a v'nahapachu. May it be that those that sought to use their power to destroy are themselves destroyed. May it be that the courageous people of Ukraine and the arms that will come to them, hopefully immediately, from all the countries of the world, given to these courageous people, and the leadership of their courageous president, who has inspired his country and inspired a world, will turn the tables. V'nahapachu, just like Haman met his end, may this evil dictator find his end, and may the world go from darkness to light. We should see open and revealed miracles. These should not be miracles that we have to seek and find and argue, was it a miracle or not? These should be open and revealed before the eyes of the world in real time. We should be able to take out our cell phones and just watch. Look at this miracle taking place. Look at what's happening. Look how goodness is standing up and fighting for evil, fighting against evil. Let us pray for better days ahead. Better days for the people of Ukraine, for the people of Russia, for the people of Europe, and for the entire world. May all those, including friends and colleagues of mine, that are somehow trying to race for a border, whose wives and children are now in vans trying to make their way to their border while their husbands are still manning their Chabad centers because they have senior citizens there that can't make the run and they will not leave them. And they've sent their wives and children alone to try to get to the Polish border, or to this border, to this border. May God protect them. May God watch over them. May God watch over all of our people and all of the people of Ukraine. At assemblies like this, we should also add a prayer together. Let's take the moment that we are, where we're feeling this need to be together, that we feel the need to turn to God and ask God Almighty, we need miracles here. So let us place our right hand over our eyes. We're going to say Shema Yisrael together. Although I don't hear you because I've muted all of you, God will hear you. He doesn't mute anybody. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. If you've received the email today, we also opened up here a relief collection that's going to be airlifted tomorrow to Poland and then brought from there to the Polish-Ukrainian border to help the refugees there. So we are collecting here at the Chabad house. I sent out a list of things that we were asked to collect: blankets, sheets, pillows, pillowcases, towels, socks, and underwear. If you have any of those goods, new, preferably wrapped, just bring it by the Chabad house. There are tubs outside the Chabad here in the Gura Hills. You can drop them off. They're being packaged tomorrow. They'll be leaving here at 11 o'clock tomorrow, taken to a warehouse to be packed up, taken to a plane, and being flown into Poland and earmarked for the border to help with all the refugees. If you'd like to participate in that, if you live in the area, anytime between now and 11 a.m. tomorrow, we're taking up this collection. If you want to send in funds that will be sent to our colleagues in Ukraine, you can do so. Any check that you send in, please write in the memo Ukraine. If you give it on our website, chabadconejo.com, please in the memo put Ukraine. All the funds that will be collected will go directly. Again, we have 200 colleagues of ours throughout the entire country of Ukraine that are each one taking care. Each of these Chabad centers are loaded with people in their basements, and they're taking care of them and housing them while trying to get as many out of the country as they possibly can. God should watch over the president of Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, and the good people of the world. And next week when we're together, we should be able to celebrate the miracles that we've seen taking place over the next few days. Take care, everyone. It should be a good week for all, a good week for humanity.